Vancouver is ready for it. The final stop on Taylor Swift's record-breaking Eras Tour. 3 final shows, and the first one is tonight at BC Place. The Eras Tour is the highest grossing in history. It has taken in more than $1 billion, and it's the final stop. 149 shows. It's the Eras era is coming to an end. So we've been talking about this a lot. We've been following it very closely. But I will tell you what, nothing as closely as our next guest. His job and his life, in fact, since October of 2023, has been to follow and take in all things Taylor Swift, because he is the Taylor Swift beat reporter for USA Today. And I'm going to share some numbers over our conversation that are going to blow your mind. But first of all, I want to introduce him to you because I'm looking forward to a conversation with Bryan West. He was in Nashville today, Music City, and we're going to talk a lot about music. Hello, Bryan, and welcome to our show.
Hi, Heather. Thank you so much for having me.
Listen, everybody in Vancouver is just on tenterhooks. This is getting set. You've called it this magnum opus as she wraps things up with the 3 shows in Vancouver. Any intel? Are you expecting anything special for these final 3?
So I don't have any official intel, but what I can tell you is this tour over the past 2 years has been impressive. It's been incredible. And Taylor Swift is no stranger when it comes to surprises. I also anticipate, like she's done in her career, we could see an exclamation point put on this amazing feat.
I think she's going to be pretty emotional because she was in Toronto at the 6 sellouts in Toronto. So the end of this is going to be pretty extraordinary. Why do you think, or what have you learned in covering this, she chose to end up in Vancouver?
So initially when she announced the tour, she just said the American leg. And then as that was underway, she announced the international tour, but it was ending in August in London. And that's when you saw Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He reached out and he was like, hey, come to Canada. And also people in America wanted to see the tour again. And so a few months later, she announced this final leg. What's been really amazing to see, though, is that she's ending it in Toronto and Vancouver, and Taylor is the queen of Easter eggs. A lot of fans think the reason she might have chose those cities is because it spells out TV or Taylor's version.
See, this is why we're coming to you. You've got all the stuff that we might know otherwise. Although I will say I've learned about Swifties. They really know all the details and the minutiae about the musician they adore so much. You applied for this job, and as I understand it, you beat out hundreds of applicants to be the Taylor Swift beat reporter. Tell me why you wanted it and what you expected it was going to be.
So when I graduated college, I was a broadcast journalist for 8 years, and I left news in 2018. It was just a time that I wanted to focus on mental health and sobriety, and I joked on my way out the door, I'm only returning to news if I can report on Taylor Swift every day. So fast forward to 6 years later that this job went viral, I almost applied because friends were saying, you said this, now you have to apply, and just went through a 2-month application process, and I couldn't believe it. I'm a huge Formula One racing fan. I was at a race in Austin, Texas, when I got a call from my now boss saying, hey, can you start in 2 weeks? So I had to pack up my whole life from Phoenix, move to Nashville, and it has just been a whirlwind and adventure of a lifetime the past year.
There's a good story going on in F1 involving Verstappen. You might be moving to that next. But so far, since October of 2029, I promised some numbers. You were just talking about these yesterday, and I guess our conversation on air changes some of them, but 501 articles, 42, now 43 television appearances, 974 photos, 38 videos, a documentary, and a book, which is out, The Swift Beat. And you've seen the show. These are extraordinary, Bryan. 89 times. This is live and live streams. At 3 hours and 15 minutes, that adds up to 12 full days. That's extraordinary. Can you sum up the experience covering this?
I have been fortunate enough to visit the Eras Tour on 4 different continents, and what I find the most impressive is no matter what language fans speak, they all speak the same lyrical language. I would ask fans in Tokyo or in Australia or Europe, if you had 10 seconds with Taylor Swift, what would you tell her? And the majority of everybody always says, I would say how she helped me through a dark time, the impact she made, how impressive this tour is. And that's really neat to see that no matter how big the globe is, that something can connect every single person. And what you're going to see this weekend is just this entire Swift mania, you've probably already seen it, descending onto Vancouver or Swiftcouver, as fans are just bittersweet. They're excited for this weekend, but they're really sad that come Monday morning, this amazing tour is coming to an end.
Well, you touched on something that we've observed in our conversations too, and it's this cultural phenomenon that has been going on these past couple of years. The connections, the bracelets, mothers and daughters going to see these shows, best friends going to see these shows. How do you sort of sum up the moment or what it's created here? The phenomenon is the word I used.
So Taylor Swift has always been a superstar, but I think this Eras Tour has allowed her to extend into an even bigger universe. And what I mean by that is the stadiums were already filling up with Swifties, but it allowed the opportunity to bring your non-Swiftie to the Swiftie concert. I say it's kind of like bringing your friend to work, to where these people had heard of her, they know some of her songs, but as soon as they go to the show and they see she's dancing for 3 hours and 15 minutes in heels, how impressive that is, and that she's doing it every single night. I know it just going and standing in the audience, my lower back hurts, and I'm like, how is she doing this and she's getting up and doing it tomorrow?
It is extraordinary. She is a performer plus, plus, plus. I'm just wondering where you think she goes from here next. How would you talking about the fans being disappointed on Monday morning. I can't imagine what she's going to feel like. Where does she go next, and what do you think the legacy of this has been?
I think this is going to be a remember when phenomenon, and it's going to be one of those concerts that everyone looks back in our lifetime as an impressive feat if you went to it. I always say that Taylor has almost redefined the concert experience. When I live in Nashville, it's Music City. When I go to a concert now, I have to remember, I have to reset my expectations, saying this isn't a 3-hour show. 90 minutes is normal. It's not going to be this full-blown crazy production. And that's also the case, too, in her career. I'm curious her next project. In her book that came out on Black Friday, she had said that she never does the same thing twice. So I'm almost curious what her next project is going to look like. And her next era. As far as though what's next for her, she does have 2 re-recorded albums she has yet to release. Reputation, Taylor's version, and Taylor Swift, her very first album, Taylor's version. She also has football games I'm sure she's going to be going to. And just moving kind of into the next era and chapter.
Listen, I've run out of time, darn it all, because I had questions. I wondered about the romance with Travis Kelce and how it changed things. There she is there, one little sighting before we let you go. Does your beat end now with the end of the tour, or do you keep on covering her?
I keep on covering her. I'm excited for the next year, but nope, my beat doesn't end Monday morning. We just keep going.
Isn't that well, then we'll have other content. When we find out what she's doing next, we'll have you on back. Thank you, Bryan. It's been a pleasure to meet you and enjoy these last 3 shows.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.